Peace, Israel, and Yah bless. Thy righteousness is an everlasting righteousness, and thy law is true. I'm going to title this segment Reparations and ADOS. Once again, the title of this segment is Reparations and ADOS. First, I'd like to address the reparations situation because there's been pretty much a discussion in the midst of our people on YouTube. Reparations. First of all, there will be no reparations. No man restoreth. Abraham was instructed that the Most High told him that he was his great and exceeding reward. We are the seed of Abraham. Our reward is not the money of our enemies. The Most High is going to bring an end to these nations. So, the U.S. currency will be of no good to us when judgment is brought upon this land and all the other countries and nations in which the children of Israel have been held captive. So their currency will be absolutely no good. What is taking place right now is the uprising of the children of Israel here in America, and you will start seeing this more and more in other places where we are or where we have been scattered. You're going to see the children of Israel start raising up a shout against those who have oppressed them. And this is what we're bearing witness to. The Most High is putting a spirit upon them that they're rising up. Now, keep in mind, as it pertains to reparations, all the European nations that have been involved with this are currently looking at the state of America right now to see exactly how this is being handled. Number one, they're looking and monitoring exactly who is talking about this and trying to find ways to quell it, because the American government is afraid of reparations talk, number one, and you can rest assured that the other European nations are paying careful attention to what is taking place here, because what they know is that this movement will certainly move to other nations, and so therefore I'm certain that they're taking all the countermeasures to counteract this movement here in America and anywhere else where our people are, because it's soon to go there. Now, the American Descendants of Slavery. I actually like it. And maybe this is something that can get the people here on board to where their cause will be streamlined. We are so divided and we're so fragmented, there's no force within the quote-unquote Israelite community. Some people may call it the black community. Political affiliations are different. Some people believe in LBGT or whatever you call it, gay people. Some are for straight people. Some don't care. People have religious differences, etc. So we are very fragmented. Not only that, we are fragmented as far as our economical ability as well. So socioeconomic splitting and fragmentation is what we have here, along with all the other different types of ideologies. So maybe those in America can get on one accord as far as reparations go. I don't see this happening. If it does, I'm going to put this book down and this channel will just stay up. I won't add anything to it, because the Most High says clearly, no man restoreth. That which was taken away from us will not be restored by a man. It will be restored when we turn to the Most High with our whole heart and our whole soul, and then He will take all these curses that were placed upon us and He will place it upon the heads of our enemies. So that is what the prophets have said. That is what the Most High has said. He did not say He's going to give us money in the many nations in which we dwell. And also we're to be taken out. We're to be sifted up and taken out of these nations. So what good will be the money? Next, pertaining to money, it has been 400 years plus that Israelites have been in America and have been in captivity. Everyone else has got reparations. The Indians have got theirs. The slave master, upon emancipation, he was compensated for the slaves that he lost. The Japanese, when they were put in camps, they received compensation for that. The Holocaust victims have received compensation for that. Many of the European nations are still paying them. The United States government are still putting money into their coffers to this day. So everyone has received their reparations in a very timely manner. It has been 4 centuries plus, and the children of Israel have not received reparations. And the reason for that is this. These nations, the American government, their heart is going to be hardened just like Pharaoh's heart was hardened. Why? Because the Most High will bring swift judgment upon them. So we have seen tornadoes and hurricanes and floods and famine and war. We've seen all of these things. You're going to see it more on a grand scale. It's going to be stronger. It's going to break this place economically. It's going to break the spirit and the hope of the people. It's going to make it to where the money is no good. So we are to look for these things because the house of Israel, we are to bear witness to the words of the prophets. That is how we can validate and verify what is true and what is not, because the Most High didn't just say to simply believe in him. We are to have trust, but at the same time, he said that we are to bear witness. That's why he gave us his testimony, those words of the prophets. So we are to look at those words and validate that, seeing these things in the many nations in which we dwell. Now, there's many different types of Israelites, as you know. Israelites have been in captivity in America, Central, South, and Latin America, in Europe, parts of Asia, etc. Now, should reparations ever happen, I don't see this happening, but should it ever happen, there's no way that a man from Brazil comes here and get reparations for what took place here in America. The Israelite in America fought for his rights, still doesn't have any, in America. The little that he does have, his foreparents fought for that. An immigrant, does not have the right to come here and take what is rightfully his. As a matter of fact, I don't think any immigrant is actually pushing for that. Someone may have started that to actually cause strife in the midst of our people. No one is thinking that, okay, if you're from another nation and you're a black person, you come to America, all of a sudden you are entitled to what black Americans may get for reparation. That is absolute foolish. It is nonsense. It is unfair, and there's no way that should ever happen. Next, as we speak of reparations and we decide to hold America accountable, and certainly this will spread to the other nations where we dwell, and those other European nations, Spain, Portugal, Netherlands, and the rest of them, okay, will be held accountable, the UK and the rest of them. Now, we have to look at this thing from its source. We must look at this thing from the source, and the source would be the continent of Africa. We must understand this. If 5 white guys and 3 black guys jumped on you and beat you up, that's a number of 8 people, 5 of them white and 3 of them black, jumped on you and beat you up, and you go to the police to press charges. You don't press charges on the 5 white ones and let the 3 black ones go. And I say that to say this. There's no way that the house of Israel could have been scattered to these many nations the way they were, coming from the coast of Africa, if there weren't Africans involved in this whole process. For there are black people as well, and I'm using the term black people because there's no need for us to play semantics here. There are black people, and Caucasians don't look like black people. So there's no way Caucasians can infiltrate us unless there was someone who looked like us that was willing to do his bidding and that was willing to be a traitor unto us. So with that said, and you may not have heard this from anyone as of yet, but here's what's important, and this is a conversation that's worth having. If we are going to hold these European nations accountable, we are to hold all the African nations accountable for the same exact thing. So if we're going to go reparations, we're going to hold all the European powers accountable, and every last African nation that has been part of this slave trade, they all owe reparations to every single breathing descendant of slavery in all of the Americas. That is Central, South, Latin America, etc. So when we're talking reparations, Let's first start off. We can definitely address the many nations in which we live to hold that nation to account. And then we are to hold the African nations that was involved in the slave trade to account. Don't know how they may want to pay. They don't control their own currency as is. So they may pay with, okay, all the descendants of slaves that's been and shipped to the Americas. They may compensate us with land. They may compensate us with money. I don't think they have too much of that because the European nations control their money. Now, this is not to start any type of strife with the African nations because we are all black people as a whole. And if you're going to have any type of economical power, a, a base or a connection with Africa is important because that land has many, many, many natural resources that all the many nations of the earth actually need to survive and to thrive. So a network with the continent of Africa is very important. However, if we're going to hold these European nations accountable, and they will have to pay reparations for what they have done to the, you can call them Africans in their country. You may call it also the Israelites in these nations. So if we're going to hold the European nations accountable, Britain, France, Germany, the Netherlands, Spain, Portugal, Britain, and the rest of them, if we're going to hold them accountable and make them pay, we're also to hold Senegal and whomever else, in Ghana and whomever else that's on the continent that took part in shipping us, selling us, capturing us, and sending us into the hands of these Europeans. So if we're going to get reparations, we need that twofold. We need to get that from Africa, and we need to get that from all the European powers in which we live today. Now, with the ADOS movement, I like the ADOS. I like the acronym. For those in America, American Descendants of Slavery. That term fits well. Everyone else that's throughout the diaspora, African, actually descendants of slaves. African descendants of slaves would fit perfectly for those of us who are what you may call black, or some you may call African, or some you may call Israelites. At the end of the day, we're going to just cut the semantics out and just say we're black people. What we can certainly figure out in the end, in the wash, we will determine exactly who was an Israelite and who was not. The Most High is going to make that plain to all of us. So there's no need now to say, well, he's this and he's that, because we simply don't know who these bloodlines are. A good guiding point for us is those of us who have been shipped away, and those of us who have had our names changed and our language changed, and we're living in the midst of the heathen. But there are also many Israelites that's on the continent of Africa. So there's no need for us to have any type of strife between who's an African and who's supposed to be an Israelite. If everyone turns with their whole heart and their whole soul towards the Most High's laws, statutes, judgments, and precepts, we can figure this all out in the wash. So there's no need for us to have contention over something as simple as semantics. If we're all doing this law, doing that which is right in the sight of the Most High, it makes no difference as it pertains to that. Now, if this movement picks up, and it will, because America is the headquarters for anything happening with black people throughout the earth, whether it be music, political, dress, music, anything. Okay? So this is the headquarters to where all the other quote unquote Israelites or quote unquote black people of the earth tend to get their information and get their lead from America, or from what I would call black Americans, for the simple fact that this is headquarters. This is where the lead or the head nation of our enemies reside, and that would be the American government. And no European power moves without the consent of the American government. This is headquarters. Now, for the Israelites that's sitting in this land, this is my personal opinion. The house of Judah, the scepter holders, who you would call incorrectly the kings, that are actually the governors and the captains, as well as the Levites, the priests, are in this land. And so therefore, The Most High will raise the tents of Judah first. So you're going to see those scepter holders stand up. You're also going to see those Levites stand up, for the simple fact that the people sought the law at the mouth of the priest. So the Levitical house, as well as the house of the scepter holders, which is Judah, is sitting somewhere here in North America, because they were the leaders. And when they failed, it caused the whole nation to fail. So therefore, the Most High shipped them as far away as possible from the land. So that is why you're going to see that raising up of the tents of Judah first, which Judah being the scepter holder. And then you're also going to see the raising up of the house of Levi with this law. So coming from this land, coming from America, coming from the north, is where you're going to be hearing much of the teaching of the law, statutes, judgments, and precepts of the Most High. You're not hearing that from anywhere else. So as the American descendants of slaves take a root here in America and start pushed towards the U.S. Congress and the government, it stokes fear in these people. It's a fearful thing. And it's also going to stroke fear in the hearts of the European nations as well. However, those of the diaspora need to take the same acronym, but this time put African for the A. African Descendants of Slavery, because there are African descendants of slavery in all the many lands of the heathen where we have been captured and held captive and abused. So that is a movement that can certainly take a hold worldwide. Everyone that's listening to this should know that is an Israelite, that they are monitoring our ability to communicate and the effectiveness of our communication. None of what they're doing will work if we continue to walk in the laws, statutes, judgments, and precepts of the Most High. So, as it pertains to reparations, I think that's a good idea. Reparations is a good idea for what has been done to Africans, black people, Israelites, you name it. It has been an evil, and it's been 400 years plus, and they haven't apologized, nor have they offered any type of compensation. And there's a reason for that, because no man restoreth. We're not going to get anything from these people. These are your enemies. They hate you. They're not going to give you anything to get even or get a leg up. However, we have to bear witness to this. But should it happen, it may, maybe ease some of the tension. I don't see that happen, because a rich Israelite is just as hated as a poor one. So I don't see money making a difference, maybe in buying power, but money is not going to change the hearts of the people that hate you. They're still going to hate you. So whether they give us money or they give us land, if they give us money, they can turn around 6 months later, 3 months later, devalue that money and totally switch to different currency. If this man is going to give you $5, he's going to reach around with the left hand and snatch 10 from you. So if we get reparations, we need to start making some preparations for exactly what's going to happen should that ever happen, because they have never given us anything that has been to our benefit. Let me say that again. Our enemies have never given us anything that has ever been to our benefit, or nor will he ever give us anything that's going to be to his own detriment. So they have kept us financially underfoot for a reason, and no amount of shaming will ever make them do that which is right. It's not what they do. There's been a talk as far as asking for specific lands within America. Give us 5 states, give us 10 states, etc., etc. All of this sounds noble and just. But keep in mind, if someone is going to give you land, the first thing you have to have is a means and ways of which to protect that which you have. From Black Wall Street to all the successful black communities that were here in America that was built and destroyed, those who lived there and those who built it had no means by which to protect it. If we were given 5 states, 10 states here in America, we do not have a standing army. and that is to be kept in one's mind. There is no standing army, and there is no means by which to defend it. Our enemies came and got us out of the lands where we were and enslaved us and killed us. And that hatred is no less than it was back then to now. His sons have the same hatred for us. The only thing now is his weaponry has been more advanced. So if he came and took 400 years ago, 500 years ago, whatever he wanted to do, and did as he chose with our people as far as enslaving them, killing them, raping them, etc., and we were unable to defend ourselves against him back then, right now with his weaponry and his alliance, keep in mind, black people in America, and I'm using the term black people because there's no need for us to play semantics at this point. It is that serious. Black people in America has no allegiances with any other nation. There isn't a nation, if they decided to kill black people wholesale in America in the next hour, there isn't one nation anywhere in Africa or anywhere else that's going to come to our defense. When you deal with Russia, Britain, France, America, Australia, and the rest of these nations, many of them fly the same colors on their flag. Why? They are the same people. Do not be fooled that there's some big difference between a Russian and an American. They fly the same colors on their flag. These are the same people. And that goes for the European powers as well. When they sit down at the Berlin Conference to divvy up Africa and determine exactly what goes on in Syria, etc., etc., these same people that's pretending to be our enemies in the front are buddies in the back. Same goes for the Israelis. A lot of these Israelis people are thinking because the Russians are there in Syria, they are thinking for some crazy reason that Russia somehow is against Israel, will have some contention with Israel. These Israelis, a vast majority of them are Russian born, Russian speaking, go to that land and change their names. So we are not to be caught up in the foolishness of these nations to make us think as though they are somehow in contention. These people are the same people if you check them, if you run their DNA. Genetically, they are the same. They just may speak different languages and have different cultures, but they think the same. Their goal against our people is also the very same. So we're not to be misled and confused by anything they say and do, because they all had a hand in our slavery, in our demise, in our murder. And that's putting it in a nutshell. So let's see how this reparations thing go. It certainly is making a lot of people uncomfortable. All that's going to happen, as far as I'm concerned, is that the Most High is going to repay the children of Israel to their face, and that's what we're seeing right now. We're being repaid to our face. He's taking all of his testimony. That's his word. The testimony of the Most High is not a person. It's his word. His word says that we are to turn to him, not to man. That he is our reward, not the money of our enemies or the land of our enemies. So we're going to see if all of this is true. We're going to see, it's going to be shown in our face that everyone that has been mistreated far less than we have received reparations in a timely manner. What we're going to see is that we're going to raise up a shout against our enemies and demand the justice that we have seen served to all the other peoples. And in our face, it will be made plain to us that we're not going to get it. That's going to be a tough pill to swallow, because once that happens, it's going to validate that the Most High's word is indeed true. No man restore. That which was taken from you violently will not be restored unto you. All of your blessings is going to be restored unto you when you turn back to the law, statute, judgment, and precepts that we were given at the first. Our great and exceeding reward is the Most High, is not the US dollar or anything else, or trying to be a part of our enemies. So with the reparations thing, even if we get it, that money's got to be, they own everything. So if we receive any money at all, it's automatically being given back to our enemies. It would be the biggest stimulus package America has ever seen should that take place. And I say again, I don't see that happening, but the Most High said that we will bear witness. So either A, they're going to get reparations and prove this book wrong, or B, the Most High is going to show us to our face that, hey, look, my word is as I have said. You're not getting anything from these people until you turn back onto me. So that is something that we have to see. Still, the whole ADOS movement is certainly to galvanize our people in the many different nations in which we dwell. As we raise up our hand and our voice against these nations, whenever they become afraid or uncomfortable, they resort to violence. So, as this thing picks up steam, and it will, and we lift up a shout against our enemies, do understand the repercussions for all of this is extreme violence. Be prepared for that. And there's no protection against that, for we are outnumbered and we are outgunned. The only defense that we have in the midst of these nations, because we're sitting as a minority population within the midst of these nations, so we don't have the numbers that they do, and we certainly don't have the weaponry that they do. And there's no African nation that's coming to our aid. They never have, and they never will. We are all black people, or African people, if you like. Keep in mind that Israel is in Northeast Africa, but there's a vast difference between our people and Africans, and there's a very vast difference between Africans and Africans. So there's strife on the continent of Africa, and they are quite divided. They are divided ethnically. They're divided by customs and language. So they don't have it together on the continent. And a prime example of that is they sold us here in the midst of these many nations. So all of a sudden, are we have to consider them to be our enemies as well, to some degree, because they sold us to some people that don't look nothing like us, and they had no compunctions in doing so. So therefore, we have to decide exactly where we're going to go with this. Are we A, going to side with the man that sold us to our enemies, or side with our enemies? My answer is that we will do neither. It's simply that we will turn with our whole heart and our whole soul to the Most High, walk after his laws, and we will see and let the chips fall where they may. Don't judge someone because he's African or he's black or whatever the case may be. All of this has to be sorted out in the wash once again. Let's turn with our whole hearts and our whole soul, face Jerusalem, lift our hands in prayer, acknowledge our faults, call upon the Most High, and let him sort this out. But we are at a critical point in America, and we are at a critical point in these nations. As we lift up our voice against them, they will not like it, and more than likely, their response to this is going to be violence. Now, once this violence starts, I think all that's going to happen is that's when the Most High is going to lift up his hand against these nations in a way that we have not seen before. And that is going to be to protect his elect. And his elect is going to be those who have chosen to take a hold of his law. All right. That goes out to all of us in the diaspora who have been scattered to the four corners. All black people. You may want to call them Israelites. Some people call themselves Egyptians. Let's not play semantics at this point. Black people that scattered to the four corners of the earth. There's a movement going on in America. It's called American Descendants of Slavery. Let's take that same acronym and apply it in all the nations where we dwell in the midst of the earth, where we have been scattered. And use the acronym. You go American Descendants of Slavery. You have that here in America. Let's go African Descendants of Slavery throughout the diaspora and hold to account all those European nations that has taken us captive. And then as soon as we're done with them, will turn around all the African nations from which we were sold from their ports and hold them accountable too. And let's see exactly how this thing goes. My feeling is this is going to get ugly really, really quick. Anyway, thy righteousness is an everlasting righteousness, and thy law is the truth. Let's see if this ADOS thing continue to pick up steam. Let's see if reparations is giving to us. Like I said, if we get reparations in this nation or any other nation, there will be no more broadcast from this, because then I don't have to worry about the book, because it would not hold true. Peace, Israel, and Yah bless. Thy righteousness is an everlasting righteousness, and thy law is the truth. Peace.